what's good, fam? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the heaviest stories in history, a moment that changed the world forever. August 6, 1945, Hiroshima, Japan. It's a sunny Monday morning. Kids are in school, folks are heading to work. At 8:15 a.m., a US B-29 bomber drops something from the sky. Nobody knows what it is. 43 seconds later, a blinding flash, like the sun crashing to Earth, wipes out 80,000 people in a heartbeat. Temperatures hit 4,000 degrees C. Buildings vanish. Lives are erased. This was the first atomic bomb, and it wasn't the last. 3 days later, Nagasaki gets hit. Why did this happen? Was it justified? And what's it mean for us in 2025? Hit that subscribe button and let's unpack this gut-wrenching story together. Quick challenge. Drop a comment right now. What do you know about the Hiroshima bombing? Ever heard the full story? I'm curious. This isn't just a history lesson. It's about greed, war, and humanity's fight to learn from its darkest moments. We're going from 1945 to today, exploring how Hiroshima and Nagasaki rebuilt, how Japan transformed, and why this matters in 2025. Buckle up for a 90-minute ride that'll leave you thinking. Let's start with the bomb itself. August 6, 1945, 8:15 a.m. A B-29 named Enola Gay drops Little Boy. Ironic name for a weapon of mass destruction. It falls for 43 seconds, then boom. A fireball hotter than the sun vaporizes people instantly. Shadows of victims are burned into walls. Eerie outlines you can still see today. Hiroshima's flattened. About 70% of buildings are gone. Some 80,000 die instantly. By year's end, it's 140,000 from injuries and radiation. 3 days later, August 9th, Nagasaki's hit with Fat Man, a bigger bomb. Another 40,000 die instantly, totaling 200,000 deaths by 1945's end. Why? To answer that, we gotta rewind to World War II. WW2 kicks off in 1939 when Hitler's Germany invades Poland. It's a global mess, splitting into two camps. The Axis powers, Germany, Italy, Japan, and the Allied powers, US, UK, Soviet Union, China, France. The original script said the war was just about Hitler, but that's not the full picture. Japan was a major player, flexing its own imperialist muscles. Let's break it down. By the 1930s, Japan's on a mission to build a Greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere. Sounds noble, right? Nah, it's a front for colonizing Asia, just like Britain and France were doing elsewhere. Japan's empire was massive. By 1940, they'd taken Manchuria, 1931, parts of China, Korea, and Southeast Asia. Think Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Indonesia. These were French, British, or Dutch colonies, so Japan's stepping on toes. Their goal? Resources, oil, rubber, rice, to fuel their war machine. In 1940, they invade French Indochina, clashing with France. The US, who still neutral, isn't happy. They slap Japan with sanctions, cutting off copper, iron, steel, and critically oil. Japan imported 80% of its oil from the US. That's a gut punch. Japan's like, fine, we'll get oil elsewhere. They eye Indonesia, Dutch-controlled, and Malaysia, British. Problem? Attacking those means war with the Allies. Plus, they want the Philippines, a US territory. Japan knows a direct fight with America's a losing bet. US has more ships, planes, cash. So, they plan a sneaky move. Cripple the US Pacific Fleet first. December 7th, 1941, they launch a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Over 350 Japanese planes bomb US ships, killing 2,400 Americans, sinking 19 vessels, and destroying 188 aircraft. Bold, but reckless. The attack backfires. The US, which had stayed out of WW2 to avoid another WWI disaster, is pissed. President Roosevelt calls it a date which will live in infamy. America declares war on Japan, joined by Britain and China. Germany and Italy, Japan's allies, declare war on the US days later. By late 1941, U2's a global slugfest. Pearl Harbor wasn't just a spark. It pulled America into the war full throttle. But why did Japan think they could pull this off? Let's talk about their mindset. Japan's ruled by Emperor Hirohito, seen as a living god. The original script nailed this. People were brainwashed to obey him blindly. Question the emperor? You're a traitor. Japan's military twisted traditions like Bushido, a samurai code about honor, into a cult of death. Soldiers were taught dying for the emperor was the ultimate glory. Surrender was shame. This fueled kamikaze pilots. Suicide bombers crashing planes into Allied ships. Even kids were trained to carry explosives and dive under tanks. Insane, right? Comment below. Can you imagine being brainwashed like that? This fanaticism made Japan a tough enemy. By 1943, Italy surrenders. In April 1945, Hitler kills himself, and Germany folds. Japan's the last Axis holdout, despite heavy losses. The Allies hope Japan's starving, unemployed citizens will revolt, but Hirohito's grip is tight. The US plans Operation Downfall, a full invasion of Japan. But the Battle of Okinawa, April-June 1945, changes everything. It's a bloodbath. 12,000 US soldiers dead, 50,000 injured, 110,000 Japanese soldiers, and 100,000 Okinawan civilians killed, 1/4 of the island's population. Japan fights to the last man with kamikaze attacks non-stop. Okinawa scares the US. If a small island costs this much, invading Japan's main islands could kill millions. The original script estimated 1 million US deaths, but records suggest 400,000, 800,000 US casualties, plus millions of Japanese. Either way, it's grim. President Truman, who took over after Roosevelt's death in April 1945, needs another way. Enter the Manhattan Project, a top-secret US program to build an atomic bomb. On July 16, 1945, they test Gadget in New Mexico. It works. Truman sees a chance to end the war without a ground invasion. Before dropping the bomb, the Allies issue the Potsdam Declaration, July 26, 1945, demanding Japan's unconditional surrender or face prompt and utter destruction. Japan's military laughs it off. Nobody knew destruction meant an atomic bomb. The original script said anti-war sentiment was high in Japan, which is true. Civilians were starving, and some leaders wanted peace. But Hirohito and the military wanted to keep power, rejecting surrender. On August 3rd, Truman greenlights the bomb. August 6th, little boy hits Hiroshima. August 9th, fat man devastates Nagasaki. Let's pause for the human toll. Survivors, called hibakusha, describe a nightmare. A blinding flash, then a deafening blast. Temperatures melt skin. Shock waves hurl debris. Glass, wood, concrete. Black toxic rain falls, poisoning survivors. In Hiroshima, 90% of doctors and nurses die. Hospitals collapse. Radiation sickness kicks in. Vomiting, hair loss, organ failure. By 1945's end, 140,000 die in Hiroshima, 74,000 in Nagasaki. About 80–90% are civilians, not 95% as the original script claimed per historical data. The scars are physical and emotional. Share this with a friend who needs to hear it. Stories like this remind us why history matters. Let's talk survivor stories. Take Sadako Sasaki, a Hiroshima girl who was 2 when the bomb hit. She seemed fine, but at 12, she got leukemia from radiation. She folded 1,000 paper cranes, believing it'd grant a wish to live. She didn't make it, but her story inspires peace movements today. Comment: ever heard of Sadako's cranes? These stories hit hard. Why Nagasaki? The original script said it was less deadly because of hills and warnings. True. Nagasaki's terrain shielded some areas and pamphlets warned of bombings after Hiroshima, but the second bomb's timing, 3 days later, sparks debate. Hours before Nagasaki, the Soviet Union invades Japanese-held Manchuria, a huge blow. Some argue Japan would have surrendered without the second bomb. Hirohito finally agrees to surrender on August 15, 1945 after Nagasaki and Soviet pressure. WO2 ends. But was the bomb necessary? Let's dig into that. The US says they had 2 choices: Operation Downfall, millions dead, or the bombs, 200,000 dead. Truman argued it saved lives overall. The Manhattan Project scientists knew radiation was bad, but didn't grasp long-term effects like cancer spikes. Hiroshima's leukemia rates rose 17-fold by the 1950s per WHO. Critics counter: why bomb civilian cities? A military base could have shown the bomb's power, or wait for the Soviet invasion to force surrender. The moral question, killing 200,000 to save millions, is brutal. Comment: what do you think? Was Truman right? Let's challenge ourselves. Pause the video and reflect. Could you make a choice like Truman's? Drop tough call in the comments if you thought about it. This isn't just 1945. It's 2025. Nuclear risks are still real. North Korea's testing missiles. Iran's uranium enrichment is up per 2025 IAEA reports. Russia's rattling sabers over Ukraine. Understanding Hiroshima and Nagasaki helps us push for peace today. All right, let's keep going. Post-war Japan's next. After the surrender, the Allies occupied Japan until 1952. They rewrite Japan's constitution, making it a democracy. Hirohito stays a figurehead emperor, powerless but symbolic. Japan's military is gutted. Article 9 bans offensive wars. Rebuilding Hiroshima and Nagasaki starts fast. Volunteers clear rubble. By the 1960s, both cities are thriving. Hiroshima's Peace Memorial Park, built in 1955, honors victims. Nagasaki's Atomic Bomb Museum opens in 1996. If you visit in 2025, you'd barely know these cities were obliterated, except for scars like the Hiroshima Dome left as a reminder. Japan's economic miracle is wild. By the 1980s, it's the world's second largest economy, pumping out cars, Toyota, Honda, and tech, Sony, Nintendo. In 2025, Japan's a global leader in innovation, with a GDP of $4.2 trillion per IMF data. But the Hibakusha, survivors, face lifelong struggles. Radiation caused cancer, infertility, and birth defects. A 2020 study found 10 to 15% higher cancer rates in survivors' kids. Japan's government offers free healthcare to Hibakusha, but stigma lingers. Some were shunned, feared as contaminated. Let's talk global impact. The bombs sparked the Cold War arms race. By 1960, the US and Soviet Union have thousands of nukes. The 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis nearly triggers World War III. The Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, in 1968 tries to limit nukes. But by 2025, 9 countries have them. US, Russia, China, UK, France, India, Pakistan, North Korea, Israel. The Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, 2021, bans nukes outright, but major powers ignore it. In 2025, global stockpiles hold 12,000 warheads per SIPRI. Smash that like button if this is blowing your mind. Let's get personal. In 2025, Hiroshima and Nagasaki are peace hubs. Hiroshima's Peace Memorial Ceremony, held every August 6, draws thousands. School kids learn about Hibakusha stories, folding cranes for peace. But tensions persist. A 2023 Pew survey shows 65% of Americans still justify the bombings, down from 63% in 1991. Only 25% of Japanese agree, up from 29%. Why the divide? Americans see it as a war ender. Japanese see civilian suffering. Who's right? Comment your take. Let's do a quick challenge. Fold a paper crane today. It takes 5 minutes. Post a pic on X with the peace crane and tag me. It's a small nod to Sadako and peace. All right, let's zoom out. The bombs taught us nukes are a last resort. But in 2025, risks are real. North Korea's 2024 missile tests spooked Japan. Iran's nuclear talks are shaky. Climate change and AI could destabilize geopolitics per a 2025 UN report. We need to stay woke about nuclear threats. Time for solutions. How do we honor Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 2025? Step 1. Educate. Share this video. Spread the truth. Step 2. Advocate. Support groups like ICANN, pushing for nuclear disarmament. Step 3. Reflect. Think about peace in your life. Resolve conflicts. Spread kindness. Step 4. Vote. Back leaders who prioritize diplomacy over war. These steps matter. Comment. What's one way you'll promote peace this week? Let's inspire each other. Let's hear a story. Meet Keiko, a Nagasaki Hibakusha I read about. She was 10 when the bomb hit. Lost her mom and brother. Got breast cancer at 40 but survived. Now in 2025, she's 90, speaking at schools about forgiveness, not hate. Her words, "War steals everything, peace builds everything." Stories like Keiko's remind us why we can't forget. Share this with someone who loves history. It's too important to miss. Okay, FAQ time. Stuff you're probably wondering. Why didn't the US warn Japan about the bomb? They kinda did. Potsdam's utter destruction hint, but didn't say nuke. Secrecy ruled. Could Japan have surrendered earlier? Maybe if the US allowed Hirohito to stay emperor, but unconditional was non-negotiable. Are Hiroshima and Nagasaki safe now? Yes. Radiation's mostly gone by 2025, unlike Chernobyl, due to how A-bombs work. Got more questions? Drop them below. Let's talk 2025 vibes. Japan's a tech powerhouse hosting the Osaka Expo this year, showcasing AI and sustainability. Hiroshima and Nagasaki are symbols of resilience. Think Phoenix rising. But globally, we're on edge. A 2025 RAND report warns of nuclear brinkmanship as smaller powers like North Korea flex nukes. The US spends $50 billion a year on its arsenal, per CBO data. Meanwhile, hibakusha are fading. Only 100,000 left, average age 85. Their stories must live on. Another challenge. Write peace war on a post-it and stick it somewhere you'll see daily. Comment done if you do it. Small acts keep the message alive. Now let's revisit the moral debate. Truman never apologized, saying the bombs saved lives. But what if his family was in Hiroshima? A 2025 book, The Hiroshima Dilemma, argues the bombs were as much about scaring the Soviets as beating Japan. Cold War posturing. Mind-blowing, right? Let's get global. India, a US ally in 2025, has 160 nukes per CIPRI. Pakistan's got 170. Tensions flare over Kashmir. In the Middle East, Saudi Arabia's eyeing nukes if Iran goes full nuclear, per 2025 Al Jazeera reports. These are Hiroshima's echoes, escalation risks. But there's hope. Grassroots movements like Japan's Nihon Hidankyo, 2024 Nobel Peace Prize winner, push for a nuke-free world. You can join them. Check their site, link in the description. Back to Japan. Let's talk pop culture. Films like Oppenheimer, 2023, and Godzilla -1, 2023, revisit the bombing's legacy, sparking debates. In 2025, a Netflix doc, Hibakusha Voices, Trends, Amplifying Survivors. Music, too. BTS's 2024 song, Peace Crane, goes viral, raising funds for Hibakusha. Pop culture keeps the story alive, but it's on us to act. Share this video on X with the Hiroshima 75. Let's trend it. Alright, final stretch. What's the big lesson? Hiroshima and Nagasaki aren't just history, they're a warning. In 2025, we've got 12,000 nukes ready to launch. One mistake could end us. But we're not doomed. Push for peace. Call out warmongers. Support disarmament. And live like Hibakusha with resilience and hope. Comment. What's one thing you'll do to spread peace? Let's build a movement. If this hit you, smash that like button and share it with a history buff. Subscribe and hit the bell. We drop deep dives like this weekly. Want more? Tell me in the comments. Cold War next? Chernobyl? You name it. Thanks for sticking with me for 90 minutes. You're a legend. Let's keep learning, growing, and pushing for a better world. Catch you in the next one. Peace out.